go ahead and introduce everybody. I would like to begin. This is Mark Wyatt. This session is Rural Trail Development and Active Transportation, a snapshot in Iowa. I would like to start by introducing Kansha, who's a regional planner with Southeast Iowa Regional Planning, has a background in both environmental and transportation planning. Previously a research assistant in the Office of Sustainability at the University of Iowa, and focused on sustainable transportation initiatives on campus. Jenna is a Stanton graduate with a degree at Iowa State University, lived in North Carolina for 5 years before moving back to Stanton. She's on the Stanton 151st Anniversary Celebration Chair and serves on many local boards. They're in farming and operate Hart Farms, have 3 children. Thank you for being here, Jenna. And Sean Morrissey, you are with Jefferson County Conservation. Started with them in 1996 as a park ranger, recently taken over as director, and watched the development of that 16-mile trail loop in and around Fairfield. You have experience in maintaining trails, and no doubt they have been appreciated by the community. So I'd like to welcome you all. I will shut off my camera and let you guys go ahead and take over from here.
Okay. Does one of you guys want to go first, or how do you want to do this? I have kind of a little slideshow I was going to go through, but I can do it at the end as well. So
why don't you go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll try to leave time for the other 2 speakers here. As you can see, my name is Sean Morrissey. I live in Southeast Iowa, just outside of a town called Fairfield in Jefferson County. And just so you know, since we're talking about rural areas, that Jefferson County is about 18,000 population, and the city of Fairfield that the trail I'm going to be talking about wraps around is about 10,000 people right now. So we're not tiny, but we're fairly small. So it can be done in smaller communities. Basically, I think what we're talking about has already been done in Fairfield. But I think I can just show you kind of a snapshot of if you're planning something like this or working on something like this, how it's going to end up. And I'm going to try to get to my now. Give me 1 second here. Let's do the share screen. Okay, can everybody see that right now? Okay, I'm going to get the sound on too before I get going here. So anyway, basically back in about 1997, shortly after I started working here, just 1 second, Brittany. We had a guy, basically all of our stuff was done with, I can't turn the pages here, but the guy named Ron Myers was on our conservation board and was kind of a trail advocate or liked trails. And he wanted to develop, this was going on in other parts of the states where old abandoned right-of-ways were getting turned into recreational trails. And he wanted to do that here in Jefferson County. We have a park called Jefferson County Park that is right on the outside of Fairfield, and basically had an old rail line running through the city and through our park, and we had already been working on trails within the park at that time, and they wanted to expand it out on the rail bed to a little town called Libertyville. Is it working now? And so basically that's when it all started, and that's kind of the time frame I'm going to be telling you about. We started all this in the late 90s, and it wasn't really complete till about 2013. So you're talking about maybe a 15-year period to develop this trail. This is a picture, if you can see it, or a map. In the center of it is the city of Fairfield. You can see Jefferson County Park and several other parks in green around. And the purple line or blue, depending on how it looks on your screen, is the loop trail. And it's about 16 miles, and it was done in multiple pieces. But back to what I was talking about with Ron Myers, he developed a group, or I don't know if you call it a club or what you call it, but they called it the Jefferson County Trails Council. And there was 3 or 4 guys that just had an interest in this and were very important to the progress of this trail development. And then they did work with the city, and the DOT was involved with this. But I'll back up a little bit here. The Conservation Board and Ron Myers were kind of the start of everything in the county. And if you're not familiar with conservation boards, there's one in every Iowa county. They have county parks and public hunting areas and all sorts of things within the county. And we have a lot of trails in our county. But we started working on this trail called the Cedar View Trail, which is down in the kind of the left-hand lower corner of this map in the late 90s. And it was, that was the rail bed trail I was talking about. And basically we owned portions of it, and we didn't own portions of it, but we felt like it was important to what we were doing. We already had trails within the park. We were promoting water trails, and we have some horseback trails, but we didn't have the big, long recreational transportation type trails. These are just some pictures of what we do. Anyway, I'm definitely screwing this up, but Brittany, the goal was to get this going out to the west, but we had it's stuck again. Had a big creek to cross called Cedar Creek. Okay. Try to get, these are just pictures of some of our park trails. We've been in this business a little bit, and you can see that the other thing I want to bring out, and I'll maybe mention at the end, is the use by the public is tremendous. There's no doubt, even in a small community, your schools, just your population in general, and even more so, which I know you all know, in the last year, we've just been like in awe of the amount of people that have been coming out to these trails. Okay, so I'm going to get to the Cedar View Trail here. And I have a video, but I think I'm going to run short on time, so we'll skip that. Maybe. No. But basically it was going to show we had some nice footage of the trail. And the bridge I keep talking about was our big first grant type project. Just get me beyond that. Anyway, I apologize for the screw ups here, but the bridge, we had designs done. It was a 385-foot cement bridge over a fairly big stream in our county. And it was basically over $400,000 bridge. And we don't have that kind of a budget, obviously. But we did start looking, and when I say we, this was Ron, this was our volunteer group, started looking at what grants or how are we going to pay for this? And there was, I think it was called T21 money at the time, but it was basically alternative transportation or trail money that was going through like the DOT. These are more pictures, more of the public use. And this is the trail. This is an overlook of a wetland. And there's the bridge is on beyond here. But basically, when I was new, this was in like 97, and I thought, there's no way we're going to get $400,000 for this bridge, but they did. I've been wrong many times and have gotten used to it. But we got that all done, and then I'll go on to this loop trail. And this was in the early, I think it was 2002 when that Cedar View Trail stretch was completed. And then we had this other thing going on that around the south and west edge of Fairfield, there, Highway 34 is the major highway that runs east and west through southern Iowa and through Fairfield. And they were building the 4-lane bypass around the city. And this was all going on about the time that our Trails Council had come up with this idea of a loop to connect all these parks and features around town. And so they had made some connections. The DOT had to cross our Cedar View Trail with their 4-lane highway, which involved another overpass bridge, and they designed that in. But at the time, they evidently had money, and they built the basically 6 miles of the loop trail on the south and west side of Fairfield run along the 4-lane bypass. And they built all that at no cost to us as part of their highway project. So that got us going pretty good. And then the Trails Council had to, and let me back up and just say, we take care of the south half of it, the Conservation Board does, which is about, I don't know, 7 or 8 miles. And then the city park and rec, City of Fairfield, takes care of the north half. And it works out good because they've got some city parks and reservoirs on the northeast corner. And then we have some major areas more on the south and west side of town. But we work a lot with the city park and rec. But to go on from our Cedar View Trail and the loop trail that the DOT did, this Trails Council group and the city then just over the years kept plugging in little pieces of this map. And I won't go through each year's time frame, but that one of the major hurdles, they had to cross an active rail line there, the BNSF railroad, and that's a little more challenging. If you're developing around a railroad, they're fairly stringent on what they'll let you do, but there's another several $100,000 bridge there that I guess it looks like about 2004. It's on the east side of town, that time frame. This picture here kind of shows you how long it took. All these little legs were done. And we do, the other thing I haven't mentioned, we have a lot of easements through private property. And it just, you know, some of it, there were dead ends for sure, like on our rail trail, that Cedar View Trail going west to town, had landowners that said, nope, take a hike, we're not doing that. And that stopped progress. But some of the loop trail, they had plan A, plan B, plan C, and they got it all done. But there was a lot of work trying to get cooperation with private landowners that went on. And then the other big thing they had to come up with were these bridges. Just laying or shaping a trail bed and rocking it that's fairly expensive, but not terrible. But when you start putting bridges over like railroad tracks, and there's a lot of engineering and actual contractor work that's very expensive, and you've got to get either grants, however you can. We had a lot of public donations in the community. These are just more pictures of the loop trail as it goes through. And a lot of them go through different parks, like I mentioned, Whittam Woods. This is a picture of a trail that goes through a pasture, and they had to build the fence. That was our expense. And then there's an underpass on this section for the cattle to go rather than cross the trail, they go under. I don't think they use it real well, but anyway, it can be done. I'm not sure how we're coming out on time here. This is another highway bridge on the right side that the trail goes under. This is the kind of bridges the DOT put in over a couple streams on the portion they built. But there's anything from little wooden bridges to fairly significant concrete bridges, and it's quite an expense. This is a historic site. We have some historical barns in the equipment. And this is another picture of the community interaction. The trail actually runs right through on the right side of these barns. And our hospital as well is on the left here. And I'll finish up here. I kind of went through that real quick, but give these other gals a chance to talk. It's kind of an ongoing thing. This is a picture from last summer. We had the trail here, and the city had to redo the major sewer. So this has all been excavated and redone, and there's a giant sewer line running underneath it. And we also have some upcoming, we have a roundabout going in that's going to affect the trail. So even once you get it built, you have connections and things that are ongoing. But basically it can be done even in a small community. And everything I've seen, I've used them myself, but people you wouldn't expect will use these. Even if you get a little resistance in the community, by the time it's all built, everybody in the community will use it. And I guess if someone wants to move on from that, we can come back at the end for any questions. And I will say, if you look on this map, you can find a lot more information at jeffersoncountytrails.org or at jeffersoncountyconservation.com. All right, I'm done.
Jenna, do you want me to go next or you want to go next?
Brittany. Oh, here.
Can you see my screen okay? Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna talk about active transportation planning and what it looks like in rural Iowa. And if I was there, this would have been my 4th year of attending the Iowa Bike Summit in Des Moines. So hopefully we'll be there next year. But Mark already gave an introduction about me, but I did want to go ahead and show you a few pictures just to show my love for the outdoors and the kind of work we do here at Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission. I have been involved with Iowa Department of Public Health with various initiatives around complete streets and just building healthy communities overall. I've also done a couple plans for Iowa Department of Transportation, including long range plan, And then I'm going to talk about the Greater Burlington Bike and Pedestrian Plan that we just finished up last year. I'll be talking more about it, but it seems like I've gained a lot more interest in multimodal transportation. And so I wouldn't be shy to say that I have become like one of the advocates for active transportation, at least here in Southeast Iowa. We'll go through a little bit about just kind of comparison between urban and rural Iowa and what active transportation actually looks like, because it looks slightly different than what you're used to seeing up in Des Moines and Iowa City and Ames. And then why there is a need for biking and walking and just active living overall for rural Iowa more so. And then, like I said, I will be going little in detail about the Greater Burlington Bike and Pedestrian Plan that we completed last year. And I'll be touching on the public input process we did for that, what came out of the plan, and then what's coming next for Greater Burlington. This is just pictures of, well, the one that you see on the top left is from Iowa City downtown area. And this is one of the bike racks that they installed not recently, I would say, but it's been maybe like 3 or 4 years probably. So fairly new. The one that you see up parking his bike over there was my classmate in planning school. So I found that online. I thought it was funny. So I just put that in there. And then the ones that you see on the right here, and then at the bottom one is actually for Flint River Trail, which is an 18-mile trail that connects our downtown here in Burlington and then Big Hollow, which is like a recreation area up north. And then on the right, that one you see is a fairly new trail by Mason Road. So you can see just the contrast in the pictures. And I did want to mention for cities like, Iowa City, Ames with, universities and campuses like that, it's just easier to spot bikers because the students, it's just so many students that would be, living around downtown area, just using their bikes to commute on a day-to-day basis. Whereas for rural Iowa, when you kind of compare it with urban areas, you would see a lot of the biking, walking is more for recreation than actually commuting to work. Now, this is not to say that nobody commutes to work. Of course, there is population that does, but you would say the majority would be, on the trails on a Sunday evening with their families and whatnot. So it looks slightly different when we talk about rural Iowa. I wanted to show what we actually have in Greater Burlington. And when I say Greater Burlington, it's just Burlington and West Burlington, which is in Des Moines County here in Iowa. It's not, I wouldn't say Burlington is rural in the context of like, the census definition is about like over 2,500 population is an urban cluster. So the population we're looking at here combined West Burlington and Burlington is about 27,000. West Burlington, of course, being a smaller community with about almost like 2,500-600 population. So, but the overall context of it is pretty rural, like the communities that we work with and the counties that we work with are fairly rural. But like I was talking about, the Flint River Trail up, the red arrow that you see, the picture on the left is the Flint River Trail. It's an 18-mile stretch. Still, there's some stretches that need to be connected to actually make that kind of like a continued trail going from downtown over to the north side. But it does cover and it does connect a lot of the destinations, recreation areas in Burlington itself. And then, of course, we're based on Mississippi River, so we have to have a trail down on the riverfront, which we do. It's at the Riverside Park, the picture that you see on the right. And then the Mason Road Trail that connects sort of the west side to the east side of the community. So this is what we have, just like off-road facilities, which would mean, multi-use path or trails that could be used interchangeably. And this is just a map showing the on-road facilities. So we do have quite a bit of shared lanes within the community. So you would see the the lines that are drawn on the map, the one in the pinks are basically all the shared lanes. And then one up, the picture that shows on the right is a bike lane on Mount Pleasant Street. Fairly new, was built in 2017, 2018, and we do see some bikers use it at this point. So this has already been accomplished. This is just to show just a snapshot of what we already have in the communities and that they are being used. Now, Sean actually touched on this. There are, of course, more people out. We've seen this with the COVID, should have been COVID-19. I don't know why it's 10. But COVID-19 pandemic, of course, you know, we got a different picture, just so many people and so many families out. And I could attest to it because like over the last year in the summer, just so many people out biking, walking with their families and kids, more so. We actually do the pedestrian counts for a lot of our communities. So, and we did one in August of 2019. So this is just to show the total counts. And we saw that the average that was done, the bike counts was 24 in August of 2019. So we were just kind of curious to see how things look in 2020. Now this is talking in April to May sort of window, the chart on the right that shows the 2020 count. And you would see that the total counts almost doubled on Flint River Trail, that stretch that I was showing on Stars Cave Park. So this is just to say it could have been, there could have been other factors with, you know, the weather being cooler in April. Maybe that's why there was more people out, but there is definite connection with the COVID-19 happening and people actually using more trails and liking to be outside with their families. This might be not something new to most of you, just benefits of walking and biking, but I did want to stress on why it becomes even more important for rural Iowa. And why we need the pedestrian and bike infrastructure in our communities. So if you look at just Burlington, West Burlington, it's almost 13% of workforce that either walks or bikes to work. In the county itself, there's about 3.7% that actually walk and bike. So there, which means there is a need for bike and pedestrian facilities. Now, of course, it comes with, you know, more making our streets more safe. We've seen 88% reduction in pedestrian walking, on-road accidents when the streets are safer with the sidewalks in them. And then, of course, health and wellness is a big aspect for rural Iowa. And our counties particularly don't do very well when it comes to health rankings. Just for Des Moines County, we stand 87th out of 99 counties in Iowa in health outcomes. And when I say that, it means the quality of life they're living, which means they could have, you know, diabetes, they could have high blood pressure. So just like overall quality of life is not that great. So that's why there is even more need for trails and just for them to be active in the community. And then we talk about health behaviors, which means the kind of lifestyle they choose, we are 98th. So, which means it's not that great because of course it's ranking lower. As higher you go, it means you're doing better in your health outcomes and health behaviors. So that's one big thing to say. Even otherwise, we know economic development, and Jenna can probably attest to this, but Stanton, Iowa, since 2010s, they've started promoting more of their amenities and recreational amenities that they have in the community, and they have seen almost about 39 million of investments that have actually been attracted to the community. So that's to say, why we need more biking and walking and how it can benefit rural communities, and not just with health, but also economic factors. Now, the question we get asked quite a bit whenever we go to like meetings or meet with people, talk to them, they would compare us to Minneapolis. They'll compare us to Iowa City, just all these big cities that they go to and see that they have such great bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and they ask, why not us? And of course, we are not designed, and which is the case with most of rural Iowa, we are not designed for walking and biking. Or even if you look at Burlington, West Burlington, we're on a state highway, which means they have been built, our communities have been built more for high-speed cars than for thinking about, people walking or sidewalks or kids walking to school. So it's a different setup. So this goes back to the history that we have of why we have to work our ways back into it. And of course, the main issue comes with the cost of these projects, especially when we talk about wider sidewalks or when we talk about multi-use trails and things like that. Who's going to cover it? I mean, the city has, different priorities. So what do we focus on next? And then a lot of arguments we would also kind of hear from, there's always different kind of people we meet with. And of course, there's also a group of people that will say, well, we just don't see anybody use the sidewalks. We don't see anybody using the bike lanes and whatnot. So there's always that argument. But for them, we always have the stats to look at. And just if you look at Des Moines County, we have 7% of population or households that have no vehicle. So it could be a family of 4 or 5, but they have no vehicle to get anywhere, to go to Walmart, go grocery shopping, go to work, and things like that. And then, of course, most of us do have vehicles, which comes up quite a bit. But like I said, not everybody has that luxury of having their own vehicle. Now, this is the Greater Burlington Bike and Pedestrian Plan that we completed last year. This was again with a partnership with the City of Burlington, West Burlington, and Des Moines County. And we looked at this plan as more of a strategic plan for the next 10 years. And the reason why we did this was, so we did one back in 2013, so it had been a while, and we saw that the cities and the communities had already achieved quite a bit of the goals that they had in the last plan. So this was a great way for us to kind of take a step back and kind of reevaluate our existing infrastructure, see what we have achieved, and then come up with what's coming next. What are our priorities for the next 10 years? What are we going to focus on? So this was important for the county and for the city. So we went ahead with the planning process for this. Now, of course, this was a comprehensive planning process, I would like to say. So we had a steering committee that was pretty just key stakeholders from the communities. There was about 7 or 8 people on that committee, and we would meet regularly just to kind of gauge what kind of priorities we're looking at for the plan and going ahead. So we, of course, had meetings with them. We met one-on-one. We involved quite a lot of the bike groups here locally in Burlington. This Bike Burlington group that's pretty active. It's a pretty big group of people that actually would meet every week and then go out and biking and everything. So we met with them. We met with the local bike shops because they're the ones who know where the need lies, and they have clients coming in every day. We did public meetings all over the communities. We had about 40 people come up, and you would see that little picture on the right. Somebody had their, they came in their biking gears and everything, and they had their bikes, and it was like a full room of people that we were honestly not expecting to be there. And then we did an area-wide survey for both the communities and counties. We got over 300 responses for that, which is pretty significant for a small community like us. I will not go deep into the survey since we will not have the time, but I did want to stress when we asked people in the survey about their concerns and what discourages them from being outside and actually performing the recreational activities that they should be, they said high vehicle speeds. Now, this is enough to stress that safety and having just lower traffic speeds is what people are looking at to feel safe, right? If I'm walking on a sidewalk, maybe it's fine. But if I'm on a bike lane in my bike and there's cars moving at, posted limit is 35, but they're moving at 40, 45, do I feel safe is the real question there. What we learned from the planning process was, of course, that there is different kinds of bikers and cyclists in the community. So the Bike Burlington group that I was talking about would probably lie in that 7% of population that is really strong, really confident about biking anywhere. Like they can bike on the county roads and call it good. Like they don't care about cars going at a high speed, cars going at 65, 70. Like it's something they're pro at it. So they're pretty comfortable being where they are. But we also wanted to focus on that 60% population, which is probably people like me with having a 1 year, 2-year-old on their bikes. Now, do I feel safe without being on a multi-use path or having a segregated bike lane is the real question. So there's different high stress streets and different groups of people that feel comfortable riding or walking alongside those. Now, of course, we wanted to build and kind of see where the gaps lie in the bike and pedestrian network. But we also thought it would be a good idea to kind of split our priorities into 2 different groups. So instead of saying we're going to do all of this in the next 10 years, we say, okay, what is the low hanging fruit for us? What is the city already working on? How can we align the projects that we are proposing that align with the project that the city is doing? So if the city is trying to tear up a street for storm sewer separation, which is happening all over Iowa at this point, and the communities are stressed about it, if they're already going through that process, how can we align that? And maybe when they are actually in that process of rebuilding the streets that exist, can we include a sidewalk in there? How much will it cost? So we're looking at the next 5 years probably, and then focusing on the next easy steps, the local key destinations that are really important to the community, maybe like a major park in the city, and how do we connect it to a hospital or the mall in the community. So those were the short-term priorities. But then also, like Sean was talking, I mean, they have a great loop going on. We heard that quite a bit from the public input process that we did, and people are wanting to see that, but that might take a while so to get there. So we do want to get there, but it's going to be maybe beyond the 5-10 years of timeline that we're looking at, because it needs more resources from the community. It needs more time and just more effort and staff time. So that's still part of the plan, but something that we will think about in the future. Now, of course, there is, like I was talking about, different stresses of traffic and what kind of volume and speed we're looking at and what kind of facility are we proposing. So if we look at lower volume, lower speed traffic that is moving, shared lane would work fine. A bike boulevard will work fine. But if I am looking at higher speeds, higher traffic, my average annual daily traffic is higher, which means I need probably that segregation for my bike lanes to feel safe to be on them. This just shows the overall long-term and short-term vision for both Greater Burlington, for Burlington and West Burlington area. So anything in brown that you see kind of builds out that loop that I was talking about on the outside of the community, going on like county roads and everything. But like I said, the yellow ones that you see like within the cities, again, connecting those we call the short-term goals that we have. They're connecting the local key destinations in the city. Now, what's coming next for Greater Burlington? I just wanted to say a little pat on our shoulders, because we feel like the effort actually is paying off, and the cities are considering, moving forward with the proposals that we had and the priorities that we had in the plan itself. West Burlington right now is looking at connecting one of the trail segments that you see up on the left side. It basically would connect the local community college to the mall that we have. So they have already applied for funds for that through Transportation Alternatives Program through Iowa Department of Transportation. And then you would see a park kind of on the south east side. It's Dankwood Park, the biggest park. So the city is actually looking to connect that to the existing segment of the trail. And then we are planning to do a pop-up demonstration, like a low-cost temporary demonstration on Main Street as part of our IDPH physical activity grant, activity access grant. So this is coming in the next few years. So we're pretty excited that this is moving forward. Now, of course, there's always, we're left with questions about, is the street wide enough? What can we do about it? If we see people walking in the ditches, what next? And how can we make people more comfortable walking and biking? So these questions will always remain with us, of course, and we'll keep moving forward like we did in the past. So if there's any questions that anybody has, you can leave them in the comments, and I will let Jenna go next.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. My name is Jenna Ramsey, and I am the Stanton Community Development Director for the City of Stanton in Stanton, Iowa. And I'm here today to talk about our Greenbelt bike and walking trail. The City of Stanton is really proud. As mentioned earlier, we're actually almost to around $40 million since 2010 in economic developments. As you can see here on the screen with our 2020 recap, we've really been focusing on housing. We're working to improve our downtown facade. We're working to expand our daycare. And then, of course, talking about expanding our trail. As all other communities noticed, this summer was huge for trail use, for walking and biking and things like that. And one of the goals of our community has always been to expand our trail to complete the loop around our city, and then also complete the trail out to Viking Lake. We're approximately 3.4 miles from Viking Lake State Park. And we've always had that connection with people that use the park, but our goal is to actually pave something to go out there for a bike trail. And then, we talked about economic development earlier, but, hopefully those people would come in and, use the evening restaurant coming to our community. We also have a water trail that we're working on. So the economic development piece with the trails has been really big for the community of Stanton and went over really well. Like I said, we've always talked about it, but this summer it was used so much, and there's been so much passion about growing our trail. We decided now is the time. So we applied for a REAP grant in August and received that, and that is going toward land procurement to complete the last piece to complete a loop, I will say, around our trail. So next here, I'm actually going to show you the video of our trail. You can take a tour of our trail here. Let me know if you cannot hear this, please. Can you hear that? No? Okay. Let's try this again. Share sound. All right. The Stanton Greenbelt Trail is currently a 3.1 mile paved walking trail encircling the city of Stanton. The trail connects to school softball and football sports complexes, the Danny Anderson Little League Field, to the downtown business district and the Stanton School Sports Complex at Anderson Park. The new addition to the Stanton Greenbelt Trail in 2020 is a 2-year-old through 5-year-old playground. This playground is used by the Good Shepherd Christian 4-year-old preschool during the day and open to the public the rest of the time. Thanks to all the partners and volunteers that made this happen, including Mammillon Lutheran Church, Stanton Community Schools, City of Stanton, Good Shepherd Christian Preschool Board, Travis Taylor, and more. The City of Stanton and the Stanton Greenbelt Trail Committee continue to strive to move forward to complete a full loop around the Stanton community. In August, Alltech Engineering was hired. The City of Stanton received a REAP grant of $49,000 in the fall of 2020. A big thank you to our partner SWIPCO for making this happen. This was to complete land procurement, surveying, and more on the trail. A big thank you to Caleb and Jenny Getler and Dan and Sally Stokes for the fundraisers they completed this summer. The bridges all along the trail were also adopted and maintained. A special thank you to Brian and Jackie Bates, Mike and Gay Lundgren, Caleb and Jenny Getler, Jeff and Tammy Magnuson, Mickey and Marla Anderson, Dick and Judy Lovett, and Clarissa Johnson for taking the time to care for these over the summer. The next step includes fundraising for Phase 1, paving, a total cost of $277,755.20. Step 2 is paving Phase 2 at a cost of $282,141. Finally, our overall goal is completing the trail out to Viking Lake State Park, which comes at a cost of $760,000. A special thank you to the Stanton Greenbelt Trail Committee, including Pierre Skank Osweiler, Jenny Getler, Roger Ocean, Tammy Magnuson, Bob Skank, Joan Burke, Travis Taylor, Lacey Stevens, Hank Lattis, and Mayor Jeff Magnuson. And that is the Stanton Greenbelt walking and biking trail. And as you can see on this next map here, the red part of the trail is the trail that's already completed around our community. And then the yellow is actually phase 1 and phase 2 that we are trying to do to complete our loop around there, around the community. And then in the top left, you'll see the yellow goes along a road there. It's Frankfurt Street, and it will keep going to the west there. And that's actually the road that links out to Viking Lake State Park. So we, as you can see, we are really excited. And if you couldn't tell by the video, there's a lot of people in our community that are excited and enthused to make this happen in our small Southwest Iowa community of 600, around 700 people. So we are very excited. Upcoming for us challenges, or I like to call them opportunities. One is obviously fundraising. Each piece is going to cost over $200,000 to do, and that doesn't include out to Viking Lake State Park. That may be around $1 million. So fundraising, we're currently working on applying for a TDAP grant as well as a Wellmark grant. And then another thing we're looking into is we would love to do rentals for bikes and different things like that. We also have a water trail that we're working on. So we think it'd be really neat to be a piece connected to Viking Lake State Park, and people could come and rent bikes and canoes and things for the water trail. So we kind of have a building in mind, an idea, but we're just trying to find the right fit or a way to do that. If any communities out there, anyone has ideas on how to do something like that, I would love to talk with them. So, and with that, that's my presentation. And if you have any questions for any of us, please let us know.
All right, I think that concludes that. Jenna, that voice on the voiceover on the video sounded so professional, but it also sounded familiar. Was that you?
Yes.
Good job. Yeah, I think the word that I saw here recently is, instead of staycation, they're talking about daycations next year. And I think everybody, all three of you have pointed out places that my wife, who's watching this, has already said, you know, these are thumbs up on 3 places that we want to take a daycation to for the upcoming spring. So good job on what you're doing in your communities. Any questions? I think we've got 1 or 2 in the chat just to look here. Sean, I think somebody said, is it Ron Blair or Ron Meyer that you were working with?
Actually, both of those guys, I would say Ron Blair, Ron Myers, and Kent Rice was another guy. He was actually an engineer with French Reniker, very helpful. And there's way more. I noticed on the Stanton video, they kept listing all the volunteers. There's dozens, if not hundreds, of volunteers on these projects over the years, and I can't emphasize that enough. But I trying to think if I'm forgetting somebody. Definitely Ron Blair and Ron Myers, and then Kent Rice. Over the overall, you know, from conception in their minds in a little club type, their Trails Council development. And they, I won't say they came up with this on their own. They had drawn this from like the Cedar Valley Trail up, the one from Waterloo to Cedar Rapids. I think that was very influential for Ron Myers. And then Ron Blair, he's still active currently. I know he's got some grants in, like Wellmark or somebody, but there's always an ongoing little stretch or somewhere that you're trying to improve. But yeah, if someone out there knows Ron Blair, he's definitely been very influential as well.
Fantastic. The other comment that we saw in the chat box was just that you've all made the case that trails are very special in rural areas and for smaller communities. So I think we all appreciate that, and I think your communities do too. So that's fantastic. It's fantastic during the pandemic to see that they're being used, and I appreciate that. So I appreciate all the work that you all have done, and thank you for presenting today. I have 3 announcements to make, just so everybody knows. We have 3 sessions coming up next. The first one is the QF advisory bike lane update. The second one is on winter maintenance of bike trails and facilities. And the third one is on pandemic streets. They're all launched about 5 minutes apart, starting at 11 o'clock. So you have some time to take a short break and pick the session that you want. We are going to try to make sure that these sessions are recorded and placed back on the Whova platform. So if there is one that you missed, we hope that you're going to be able to pick it up afterwards, because there's some other great sessions that are all concurrently running. So thanks once again to all of our panelists, and I appreciate you being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.